Welcome everybody at the second midterm presentation Pecha Kucha style for Premium. Tonight we will host 8 groups. Those groups will share their project so far, their peak in the future and the remaining time. Before we do so, I will introduce myself. Fabienne, of course you all know her already, my backbone in Premium. I'm Ellen Bastiaans, the overall program manager for Excellence at EdLab. I would like to introduce the members of the jury. Inge Römpgens, she is academic advisor and internship coordinator at our university college. Kelly Guiskens, she is the coordinator for Premium at the School of Business and Economics. And Sang Wang, he's from Pecha Kucha Maastricht, and probably some of you have seen him also as one of the trainers in one of the workshops from Pecha Kucha. Welcome, Green Industry. Very good, your hair. Hi. So tonight, 8 presentations, Pecha Kucha style. We have developed this formula, or we introduced this formula in Premium because we think it's something you can learn from. It's a new kind of presentations. It's thinking about storylines, about how can I support my story with pictures. I've attended the workshop at Sang also, and I've learned a lot from it in making a story for our executive board and management team on employability. So it helps you in thinking about what do I want to tell, and I hope you have the same learning experience. So 8 presentations. You knew what the criteria were about, so it's about the storyline, reflect a little bit about the client and the team, what are the results, and what are you going to do in the remainder of your project. The jury will take a look at, did you follow those guidelines? Time management, because that's what Pecha Kucha is about. 20 slides, 20 seconds. Are you a bit creative in your stories, in your pictures, in the images you've used? The images you have used, and hopefully you have used as little text as possible, as could be possible. So we're going to have a fun evening, and what I've experienced with Fabienne on last Thursday with the first evening is it's great to see where the teams are going, what they are doing, what the projects are about. It's really diverse, versatile. Some teams are struggling, some teams already know where to go. And it's really interesting for us as management to see where you're going. So let's have an interesting evening, let's share and let's listen to each other. And I would like to introduce the team Museum Pass to come for the first presentation.
And happy we got the sound working, because this was the perfect introduction to us, the queens of culture. And our goal for tonight is to convince every single one of you that you too will want to become a queen or king of culture. Now, we want to give you this situation. Have you ever woken up thinking, hey, I want to do something wonderful, something exciting, something fun, something cultural? Now we want to offer you a solution to that problem. In fact, we want to offer you Belgium, where you can find the fabulous museum for a fun fest, where you can also find this artistic masterpiece. Now to really tempt you, we also want to make it even better for you by offering you personalized emails, not only suggesting that you go here, but also giving you a nice discount if you do. Now that's going to start tempting, we hope. So tempting that, in fact, we would like to encourage you to make a nice cultural party out of it. Bring your friends, bring your family, go around, travel the entire Euro region, and the nice thing about it is, if you use this culture card for it, you will both save up the time and the money, so that at the end of it you can have one, or depending on your family, a couple of well-deserved beers after. Now, about this culture card, we don't know actually whether it's going to end up being called a culture card or not. There's a couple of names, like you saw on the first slide. Our project's originally named Museum Pass, but more importantly, we don't even know who our client is right now. We think it's the Maastricht Center for Arts and Culture, but we don't know. However, what we do know is the task we were set out to achieve. Our task is to create one single card which you could use in 4 different regions spanning 3 different languages. So kind of like the small borrow package here, very, very addictive. But then on a cultural level and not a health affecting level. Now, luckily for us, there already is such a card, and it's right now based in Basel, spanning both Germany, Switzerland and France. So what we did is we went to Google and tried to gather as much data as we could from this project. And then we happily gave it all to Camilla right there, who was clearly very excited about crunching that data. Now, we've run into some 2 problems with that. One of the main problems is that not only is not all data publicly accessible, or even just half, more importantly, it's either in French or in German, which is really handy when your team consists out of someone from the Netherlands, Colombia and England. So what did we do next? We actually decided to approach the organization itself. We wrote this beautiful email. James spent evenings slaving away and making sure that it looked absolutely fabulous. We got a German native to translate it. However, just like our mail to Hogwarts, the reply actually never came. So while we're waiting for that, we ended up deciding to start mapping out any and all interesting parties for this project. So not only local governments, but also tourism offices, and of course cultural institutes, which can range from musea to castles to gardens and anything interesting. Now, next to this, we also looked at more current alternatives are already there, especially in the Netherlands. Because in the Netherlands you have the so-called museumjaarkaart and the CJP pass. The CJP pass, however, is only available to young people, so we don't think that conflicts with the culture card. And the museumjaarkaart would also not conflict due to it only being for musea. Now, as has probably been revealed by now, the project is quite diverse, the workload. So we were very happy to consist out of a little team from very diverse backgrounds. Jane, coming from a cultural background, had a natural affinity with this program. Jane, being the only one who understands numbers, happily could crunch the numbers. And then there's me from law, who is mostly interested in food, but also doing this presentation right now. Now, speaking of food, our first expense was in fact this very lovely tapas dinner. We had also planned to go to Basel, but sadly our tutor Katja said that that was kind of outside of our budget. And speaking of Katja, here she is. Now, we wanted to take a moment to actually thank Katja for all she has done. Sadly, she couldn't be here, so we ended up taking these 2 lovely pictures out of Google. We're especially proud of the right one. But more importantly, we want to thank her for all she's done, including buying us coffee whenever we needed it the most. Now, going towards the second half of our project. Our goal right now is to gather all the data we got and create one single report out of it, which we want to present towards the local government, showing that not only this culture card should be there, it can be there as well. What we plan to do then next is to take this region and take it on us on a journey, because by having this culture card in there, what we hope to achieve is not only to increase tourism, but also to spread it around. It could also be used as a platform for the already existing cultural institutes to work together. Moreover, it would work to bring together people like you guys and the culture that is already there. I know we've been talking about the card so far, but it could also very well be in the shape of an app, which would look a bit like this, because we all know that you guys are very familiar with this app. So this is still only one of the examples of the questions that need answering. Therefore, we really do hope that throughout this very short presentation, you guys were inspired to actually take up this project as well. And because we really do feel that having this culture card would really benefit this region and you guys. So basically, to sum it up, our goal is to bring down the walls, which are mostly in our head, in the shape of borders, and to really make this area great again. Now, all jokes aside, we do really hope that this culture card will come to life in the next few years. Like I said in the beginning, our goal was to convince each and every one of you to become a Queen of Culture. As I can see, there's already some of you very clearly convinced. However, nonetheless, I would like to end with the famous word of our Lord Freddy: open your eyes, look up to the sky, and see the culture card. Thank you.
enthusiastic presentation. I loved it. But members of the jury, do you have a question for Team Museum Pass? Some, yeah.
Can I have a question? Yes. I like your presentation very much, and I think you have more or less applied the tips, tricks, which we provide to you during the working session. I like the selection of your pictures very much because you are not repeating, describing the visual image, but you have your own storyline through the presentation. Maybe can you tell me something about, because you already, I noticed that you have made some progress when comparing the status of your project during the working session. Can you tell me something about preparing the Pecha Kucha presentation, whether it helps you to clear your mind about your project?
I think for us three it really did, because what we did to prepare the Pecha Kucha is we came together and we really looked at what have we done so far and what do we really want to do. So by preparing the Pecha Kucha we really crystallized all those information.
Is there another question? Sure.
You said something about discounts. Can you explain that a bit more?
Well, there's two ways this culture card could work. Either it could be a more expensive card, but would provide for free access into any and all cultural institutes, or it could be a cheaper card, but only provide discount. We are not entirely sure about it yet, but from the data we've gathered so far, for example from the Dutch Museum Jaarkaart, it seems that the discount would be more beneficial in the end.
We don't want to make decisions without talking to our clients as well and talking to the area and basically working it out with the cultural institutions before we go in and say, hey, it'll be free entry. Now, like, that doesn't work for us. So we're keeping it open at the moment.
Is there one more question in the jury?
I would also like to ask a question. By the way, what I also like to emphasize about what I like about your presentation style is your connection to the audience. It was a really lively way of presenting. You made it interesting. You had a nice attention grabber. And your reference, for instance, to the girls over here was really nice. It made it really interesting. Who are your clients was my question. Because you say it's not really clear. There are many. Is it just museums or what?
Well, one of the points which was mentioned by Premium to include in your presentation was to make clear who your client was. But the problem with our project is it's actually not clear. So we simply don't know. That's what we try to make clear there. You could say in a metaphorical kind of sense, you all are our clients, but more directly to the project, we simply don't know.
Like, Item and Mac have sort of requested that we look into it, but they're asking us to take it to the local governments so that we can then almost make them our client. So the client's a little bit flexible.
That's a good answer. Okay, thank you so much for answering, for your presentation. Come to the next team. Everybody out.
Migration has been an important phenomenon in the Netherlands since the early 1950s. Because of this, migration is a vital source of population growth in the Dutch community. In fact, this past year, the Dutch population grew by 79,000. Only 23,000 of this figure was natural birth. The other 56,000 was migration. Because of the increasing ethnic diversity of the Dutch community, it is becoming increasingly important to understand migration so that we can have a more unified community. And by doing so, by creating a better understanding, we need to start by not just understanding that migration affects the society as a whole, it also affects the individual. It affects the individual in their life course, but also in their family life. And it's important to understand that aspect of it to really understand what migrants go through in the Netherlands. We believe one of the best ways to create an understanding about migration is through education. By teaching the youngest generation about migration and helping them understand it, we hope that that will lead to a better understanding of migration and better empathy for migrants, and also in the long run, a stronger community. And in our project, we are working with a group called Family Life, It's a division of the National Demographic Institute, and it is funded by the European Research Council. And Family Life does research on migrants, particularly on their life course and family life, and how migration has affected that. And what we are doing is we've been asked to basically create a bridge between all of the research that they've compiled and education. So we're trying to implement this research in a way that's tangible for kids 12 through 14 years old, so that they can better understand migration.
So now shortly, we would like to introduce our team. I'm Anne, I'm from the Netherlands, and I study public policy and human development.
I'm Sid, I'm from the United States, and I study neuropsychology.
I'm Catalina, I'm from Serbia and I study health and social psychology.
I'm Saeed, I'm from Saudi and I study medicine.
Hello, I'm Yahweh, I'm from China and I'm studying international business finance.
I'm Janine, I'm also from the Netherlands, and I study developmental psychology.
I'm Yeling, I'm from Sweden and I study law.
So, in short, we are 7 graduate students from very diverse backgrounds. We study psychology, law, medicine, public policy, and finance. And we have come together to create something new and hopefully form a cohesive, collaborative project and a successful final product for our client. So, what is our final product going to be? We are designing an innovative and interactive tool to translate the research of NEEDY into education materials for children of the ages of 12 to 14 on the topic of the life courses of migrants in the Netherlands. This tool will form an e-reader in which the knowledge of migration can be transferred through storytelling. So our first step was a lot of reading, researching, and translating. Because in order for our story to really transfer the knowledge of NEEDY to the students, we wanted to identify and map out the different key themes and life courses that we wanted to present in our story. So the story is based on 7 characters from diverse migration backgrounds, and the story starts off when the characters are children, and as the story progresses, they grow up and go through different life courses. Our story is divided into 2 sections, focusing on first and second generation migrants. The first section focusing on the life courses of the parents of the children and the environment in which the children grow up, focusing on, for instance, family composition. And the second generation focuses on the life experience of the children who have grown up in the Netherlands. So our main characters for our story are Turkish Mehmet, Moroccan Mariam, Surinamese Naomi, Antillean Andrew, Polish Alexander, and Dutch Anna. And together they form the largest migrant groups in the Netherlands.
For example, one of our chapters is called Leaving Home. And within this chapter, we refer to the findings from the Family Life Project about Moroccan and Turkish people leaving home mainly to live in a married union and Dutch to live in an unmarried union. And this chapter and the other chapters can be found on a website we are creating with a web designer. So kids will be able to click on certain buttons on the homepage, and these buttons will lead them to pages containing our story. And we are also creating a teacher's manual and a glossary that will be downloadable from the website. Moreover, certain phrases within the story will be clickable, and they will lead the kids to fact boxes that will pop up. These fact boxes will contain the findings written in a children-appropriate way. So we want to not only make the kids relate to the characters by immersing them in a story, but also gain a deeper understanding of the research findings. Educational psychology has taught us that active participation leads to deeper understanding than purely passive reception of information. And therefore we created educational games, quizzes and discussion questions that will be presented on the website as well. Of course, we came across certain obstacles while working on this project. Like Anne has already mentioned, it has been difficult to sort of collaborate with different external people who are working on the artistic side of the project. Another major obstacle we've come across was to portray the characters in a non-stereotypical way, but hopefully we've managed to
overcome these obstacles, and now we will be working on our story within the next month, and hopefully we'll have our website ready, and it will be ready for implementation in Dutch schools. Thank you.
Members of the jury, questions?
I have a question. Thanks for your presentation. It's very interesting, insightful. I like how you keep your calm, because I can imagine if you see the slides switching all the time, you really have to stay very calm to do the presentation. You did that really well. So do you also involve any kids in the development of your
Actually, we are in contact with a teacher at the United World College here in Maastricht, and he said that we can actually interview some of the kids who study there because they have lived in many different places, and we could interview about how they manage to adapt to living in different places and use these materials as well on our website.
Oh, very good.
I was wondering how you make the stories. Where do you get the input from? Are they based on real life stories?
The stories are fictional, but we're basing it on the research of MIDI, of the Demographic Institute. So we basically used their research and mapped out what kind of life courses the migrant groups in the Netherlands go through. And we're writing the stories ourselves and trying to reflect those life courses and those topics in a way that is understandable to the children, and that also reflects the most important insights of the Institute.
From my side, 2 questions. I have noticed that you have a very big, large group and also very diversified group. And I'm curious to know how is the interaction within the group? How do you actually cope with such a big group? And how is the interaction with your clients? Can you maybe tell me something about that?
Sure.
For example, who is taking care of which part of the project? Tell me something.
That is changing a lot because when we create a certain part of material, we report it to the client, and then if they have some suggestions, we have to rearrange. But since it is such a big group, it has been a bit difficult to come up with, for example, meeting times when everyone is available. So that has also been a challenge.
And we've subdivided up the groups, so we have like a creative group, a factual group, so everyone kind of has their specialty. And then, but it is difficult to kind of combine that with keeping track of everything, because everyone has their own little task. And then we have like Janine's our external PR person, so she talks to everyone. She sends out all the emails to our client and to other people. And then On's our internal, and then we have a Facebook page. So we just had to, that's probably one of the best things we've learned is how to communicate with each other, with the client, when there's so many people and so much going on.
Thanks.
Thank you, Team Mini. Team Video Power.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we would like all our team to get you through a journey through the world of short movies, but mostly a journey through our projects. Since the very beginning, we've been trying to create new ways to create interest to short movies and widen the audience to it. Of course, we face several challenges, such as the fact that nowadays, whatever the age is, people are more and more using new technologies and smartphones to watch movies or videos. Yeah, and it's not only at home, it's also in public places more and more. So people are more and more streaming and downloading videos to watch individually. Indeed, like many things in our society, it's more and more individual, but who said that this trend could not be reversed, right? So our team is looking into the fact of making these activities social again, like back in the old days when going to the movies and the cinema was a very exceptional and social activity. You might think that this is all nice and well, but that we are dreamers and that this is not possible. But there is no mission impossible, and this project is no exception to the rule. We would like to find a balance between individual screening of movies and social activities like when you go to theaters or cinemas. This is why, a few months back, Video Power, a company stimulating the creative production of audiovisual art, was looking for a team of students to basically make distribution of short films more modern and more social. From the very beginning, the team that is present today, Tim, Hans and Dan, were really involved in the process with weekly meetings. We reported our ideas and findings, and we got very nice insight because, except from Sarah, we're not really familiar with the world of short movies, so we had to learn. That's why the first step of our project was to learn more about the art world. How did we do that? We went to Art Rotterdam, but also to the Go Short Festival in Nijmegen. We could watch various films, like an 8-minute film of a man climbing a ladder, to a very nice Japanese novel love story. So this is a very fascinating world, and whether you like it or not, it doesn't leave you indifferent. However, contrary to those wonderful film directors that created something from scratch, this is not our intention to create a whole new invention. What we want is to use experience and technologies that already exist and to create a new way for students and for public in general to experience the films like we did. What public are we talking about? The people we know best, students. And not only because we know them best, but also because those people, this target group is the one that goes less and less to cinemas. So we're targeting students from all generations and from all nationalities as well, in brief, people like us. But to achieve this, we don't only meet with the clients, but also with experts in a very nice and funny settings, in order for us to see whether this project is feasible, sustainable, with the means that we have at hand. So after very fruitful meetings, we finally had our eureka moment, like Archimedes in his bathtub. We finally found the solution between having individual screenings and having this very social activities in cinemas. You're curious, right? Are you familiar with the idea of geocaching? Basically, geocaching is a game that helps you to discover new places. You use your phone, you scan a QR code, a map comes to your screen, and then you go to the next places. It's basically a treasure hunt. We decided to use this idea to create student routes in order to make students discover short films and Maastricht. So our first step was to create a QR code, personalized QR code, for each location, basically something exclusive for the location. The participant then will have to scan the QR codes, and then they will simply watch the movie alone with friends. They will have possibilities to share their thoughts on discussion cards, online, or on the location itself. Which location are we talking about? All the location that student likes, bars, cafes, everything that you want to discover in Maastricht when you arrive. Not like me that discovered the bar governor last week. But it's not only about bars, it's also about lunch places, restaurants, and places to study, because the students don't only drink, of course. So these establishments will also have the opportunity to use our route to advertise their places and to have new clients. You don't have to finish the route in one day, although you should finish it, because as it's based on the treasure hunt idea, you will get a reward at the end, either a very private invitation to a Video Power event, or a free drinks, or again a voucher. Who, as a student, would actually say no to a free thing? But this idea, what is also nice with it, is it's reusable. Basically, if the idea is really good and students like it, Video Power could not limit itself to this. It could use it for other target groups or other situations, like a summer route or a Valentine's Day route, and the target group would then be tourists. So what is the next step for our team? That's the idea, of course. We would organize a pilot project in order for us to assess first the use of QR codes, the interest of the student in the route, and the interest of students in short films. We will then create a mini route with 3 locations, 3 QR codes. This location is still secret for you today. And we will then, at the last location, a reward can be collected. At that location, we will then conduct interviews in order to get the experience from the students, but also tips or maybe feedback. So the journey comes to the end, or at least the story we have today. But one thing you should not forget is that we all invite you to our pilot project, Cinema's Go Catch Play, that will take place on the week of the 14th to the 21st of May. So go to the Video Power website to find new updates, and don't forget to catch them all. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your final presentation. We made hopefully a lot of students enthusiastic to join Go Catch, and what was it? Play. Okay. Members of the jury, are there any questions?
My compliment. I like your presentation very much. Very good storyline. Very good time management. Could you maybe tell me something about when you prepare the Pecha Kucha presentation? What do you feel that is the advantage that you could use to pitch your idea?
Basically, the PowerPoint, like the Pecha Kucha presentation, help us to frame it, because we all have a lot of ideas that went a bit all the way. So Pecha Kucha is really good giving a framework for us to actually be precise and also have a storyline through the whole project. And we hopefully hope that our clients will understand it again. With this presentation.
If there is no limitation on the slides or on the timing, can you give me one extra point which you want to put in the presentation about your project? Or you include everything?
We try to include everything into the slide.
So nothing left over?
I can't think of anything. Perhaps, of course, we would have, because we all like talking a lot, we would have explained all the process, because we had to take some stuff out in the morning, because I was a bit too enthusiastic. So perhaps more detail for everything.
So you made a very good selection of what kind
we
of
had to.
I have maybe a small suggestion. I really like your presentation. I have a small suggestion maybe for the end, because you said people go to the website in order to actually look at the event that's coming up. Perhaps you could put on the website on the final slide, because now I was wondering, what's the website? So then we would have been facing the website, and then...
That's actually a very good idea. But all of you should just Google Video Power. But it's true that it's a good idea. Okay, thank you so much.
One more thing before we have a break, and that's about the zero emission bus transport.
Hi, we're the Zero Emission Bus Project, and we don't want to exaggerate the issue of bus emissions, but still in Limburg alone there are currently more than 200 buses running, so there's really a scope for CO2 emission reduction. And our client is the Zero Emission Bus Transport Foundation. It consists of the municipality of Maastricht, Veolia, and the consultancy Twinstrafridde. And they promote a full conversion to zero-emission buses by 2025 in all of the Netherlands, actually. And they put this beautiful zero-emission bus on the streets of Maastricht. to test its reliability and costs. The conversion to zero-emission buses is actually part of a larger project to make Maastricht a climate-neutral city by 2030, and this project is also in the coalition agreement for this current legislative period in the municipality of Maastricht. However, this process is going very, very slowly, and this is due to the fact that there are many actors involved. There are public actors and private actors, local and international actors, and that makes it very difficult to coordinate. And moreover, they have to take into account the value that citizens ascribe to sustainability and zero-emission buses.
So as you can see, our project is very ambitious. And in these 5 months from February to June, we worked together to find out how the citizens of Maastricht value zero-emission transportation. And we also want to find out what are the obstacles in the decision-making process, so to help our client to promote zero-emission buses in Maastricht. So after our first period, when we familiarized with the project, with the topic, with our client, then we started a literature review. So we read many articles and literature on the topic. And then we drafted the questions we want to ask to our stakeholders in the form of an interview, and the questions we want to ask to the citizens of Maastricht in the form of a survey. And then finally, a few weeks ago, we started interviewing the first stakeholders. So as you know, the objective of our project is primarily to assess the opinions of the citizens. So first we found the groups of citizens which we care about the most, which are most involved in the process. And they are the bikers, for example, who every day bike behind the buses, but also tourists, bus passengers, and many others. And in the survey, we will ask them, how do they value the zero-emission transportation? So what is the value they attribute to reduced noise, reduced pollution, improved sustainability and health conditions, but also what is the economic impact they perceive? So will it bring about more jobs, more innovation, economic growth, etc. So let's have a closer look to the stakeholders in our project. We have Veolia, which is the public transport operator in Maastricht. We have WDR, which is the company actually building the buses. We have the municipality of Maastricht, and especially the mobility and air quality departments. And finally, we have the province of Limburg, which grants the concessions to the transport operator Veolia. And we already started interviewing them, and we will keep interviewing them to find out what are their motivations, what are their long-term plans, but also what are the constraints they face every day, what are the problems in this project, and if there are any forces which push against this project.
Right, so one of the main challenges of our project is actually that we're not just working together with one client, but with a foundation which consists of several clients, most notably the municipality of Maastricht, Veolia, Transdev, and Twinster, which is a Dutch consultancy. And of course, these actors have different views, and that might complicate the process at some point when it comes to communication or coordination. At the same time, however, it can also be clearly seen as an opportunity, as the different stakeholders can provide us with many possible contacts to conduct interviews, interesting different perspectives, and ideas for the surveys that we want to conduct. So we really have the freedom to develop our own ideas that's given to us by our client to satisfy our own interests and curiosity. And for example, we're able to conduct our own surveys that we want to do. Also, we are able to choose the kind of experts we want to interview, all in coordination together with our client. How does our team actually work? You could really see it as an example of division of labor. Adam Smith used a famous pin-making factory as an example of that. He could have replaced this example with our group as well. We're really dividing tasks. For example, once a month somebody takes up the role of communicator, and we switch that every month. In our team, how do we actually work together? We can really complement each other due to the fact that we all have different backgrounds, different studies. Some of us have experience working together with private and public entities, for example, conducting surveys and interviews.
Okay, so what is left to be done in our project? First, we need to conduct interviews with representatives of the public sectors. From them, we want to find out what are the political obstacles and the power relations that will affect the conversion to zero-emission bus transportations. Later on, we will survey the citizens. We have the general sections for all the participants in the surveys and some specific sections for different target groups.
We measure the results using the Likert scales, which is the psychometric scale that rate the perceptions of the advantage of zero-emission bus transportations. And in the end, we expect to be able to map all the stakeholders involved in the process, their interests and their resources. This will help to understand potential bottlenecks in the policy process and help to promote zero-emission bus transportation programs. The last weeks of our project will be devoted to sum up our findings and to write a report. And this report, it has to be a policy document that will help the foundations to promote zero-emission bus transportations in Maastricht. Hopefully our findings will be useful to extend electric bus transportations beyond Maastricht.
So to conclude it all, what do we actually want to achieve? We really hope that we can contribute to a greener Maastricht, also in line with the COP21 agreement. We hope that we can be part of this amazing project, zero-emission bus transportation, and really make Maastricht a pioneer example of how other cities could also become greener. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Quite an ambition. Maastricht sustainable in 2030. And you have done some contribution to it. Members of the jury, are there questions for this team?
I really like it. It was a very well set up. In the beginning, you mentioned that you read a lot of articles and research and then started developing. Can you give me some insights on what kind of literature that you read for this?
First of all, we read articles, more academic articles about how to identify value in projects like this. So sustainability value, non-economic values, such as reducing emissions, reducing noise, reducing pollution. And then we also read many case studies. For example, there's many in Scandinavia, in Copenhagen, in Helsinki, and in Rotterdam there was one. There's many projects like this going on, so we wanted to see what's happening in other cities to compare and have a better understanding.
Yeah, I'm curious about one thing. By the way, I really like your cooperation in the presentation. You all clearly really communicated how you would all do your own talks and then do that really together. Shows the group work. You say you have different clients, which is one of the challenges, several different clients, and they have different views. So I was a bit curious, how do you deal with that? Like, how can you give some insights in how you, in your strategy to dealing with the different, sometimes conflicting client perspectives?
I would say that communication is really key there. I mean, we have some private entities and public entities. As you can imagine, some goals might be more idealistic, some might be more financially oriented. And I think you just need to try to find out what the different stakeholders really want and where you can find a common denominator to see how you can actually create synergies. So how can you combine financial interest with the greening, with the sustainability aspect, and where can you actually find this kind of overlap also between the interests of the different stakeholders, and that's how you should do that. So communication is really key.
There's a question in the audience.
I have a question regarding to a zero-emission bus. What is basically the energy source for this bus, or what is the technical story behind it?
Well, we don't know the technicalities. We just know it's renewable energy produced in the Netherlands. We studied public policy and economics, so we can't go more specific than that. But it's renewable energy, sustainable energy.
Of course. At the same time, of course, you're raising a very interesting point. I think when you...
You're not going into discussion now.
No,
Okay.
Just a very brief
That's
very brief point. I mean, of course, at the same time, when you want to move to electric transportation, you need to see where the energy actually comes from. If it still comes from fossil fuels, then of course, you're basically just diverting the attention away from the actual problem. So this is something that definitely has to be taken into account.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we will take you along in a Pecha Kucha style fairy tale. And not just a fairy tale. Since we are doing a project for Philips, it is a high-tech fairy tale. In the next 6 minutes I want to convince you that although it is challenging, our high-tech fairy tale can become true. Let us do our work, and the product we are aiming to design will improve people's health and lives. So let's start our story. Our client Philips is well known for its innovative efforts with light and electricity. Therefore, our story begins in a magical forest of light. Once upon a time, a creative robot called Timothy was wandering through the forest when he ran into a queen. She was looking into a mirror and asking, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the brightest of them all?" In the kingdom, similar to the queen, there were many people that wanted to perform at the highest possible level, always looking for ways to improve their performance. Timothy met the 7 dwarfs that were willing to help him to work on the job. The 7 dwarfs always worked hard, so they immediately went to the space mine to prepare their plan. The aim of the project was to think of innovative ideas to improve mental vitality and mental fitness. There were so many ideas and possibilities that it was difficult to decide where to start. For whom exactly was the product meant? What kind of technologies and devices already existed? And what should the product look like? It felt like if there was a pea under a stack of 20 mattresses. They could feel it, but it was difficult to define. The 7 dwarfs went to the Tower of Philips in Eindhoven. They were invited by Timothy because you can only enter this tower when you have an invitation or the proper resources. Ideas so far were presented and discussed. The group learned a lot and they continued their journey with great motivation and passion. As we all know, it is not good to judge people by their first appearances. After all, the beast might become a prince when you talk to him. So, in order to find out what the people in the kingdom really wanted and needed, the 7 dwarfs performed interviews with their target group. However, they could not choose one specific target group. So, they did a needs assessment for both rabbits and turtles. The rabbits represent young working people that just started their career. They often run very fast. The turtles are the senior workforce. Some might say they walk slowly, but they are often persistent and they can win the race. As in every fairy tale, there is villain and danger on the way. Sometimes it's inevitable to cut yourself at the shuttle of a spinning wheel. The dwarfs, for example, had different opinions on the final target group of the project, and postponing the decision cost the group a lot of time. In our story, the clock is not a lifesaver, like for the 7th goat. It doesn't protect against wolves or other villain. On the contrary, the clock is our worst enemy. Although the 7 dwarfs worked well together and were a good team, it was difficult to find time to meet. The dwarfs all had very busy and different schedules, but luckily they had Skype. The dwarfs needed to brainstorm on the product or innovation they should make, so they did a market research. A lot of technologies exist for cognitive enhancement. Games, apps with games that should improve cognitive functions, devices that measure and stimulate your brainwaves. It's more richness than you can ever imagine or wish for. And expensive too, by the way. Unfortunately, the clinical evidence for these technologies is often limited. Improving cognitive functioning in daily life with technologies is not that easy. It's like you're trying to sell basically nothing, as if it were the most expensive and beautiful clothes you have ever seen. The 7 dwarfs met up with Timothy again, and they agreed that whatever they would create would focus on improving performance, tracking your own progress, and involve maybe some coaching elements, but it would not be based on the false promise or lie that you would train your brain and enhance your memory or other cognitive functions. The 7 dwarfs continued with the project. It was very encouraging to see that their hard work started to pay off. They had something concrete now. The idea of the project began with planting a small seed, but now the project became clearer and clearer, and the beanstalk started to grow. To make sure that the 7 dwarfs remained the close team they were, a team dynamics meeting was organized. Instead of looking at mistakes, the group focused on learning from victories and positive experiences. So, not looking at weaknesses, like being small, but looking at strengths, like being smart. We are approaching the end of our story, at least for now. But how will our story continue? First, the 7 dwarfs have to learn more about their final target group, the turtles or senior workforce. But as long as they keep faith in what they do and keep working hard, it will probably be a Cinderella story. One thing that will happen is a so-called hackathon, a combination of hacking and a marathon. Basically, the 7 dwarfs will be locked up for 2 following days together with people from Philips, like Hansel and Gretel were locked up. During that time, they will constantly be working on developing a product, and they will come up with a concrete idea. One main challenge for the future will be the great distance between the team and time. Experiences abroad, internships and theses will make it even more difficult to be all present at the same time. It will be like some of them live under the sea and some of them on the land. Clear digital communication will be essential. Our product will be as innovative as you can expect from Philips, and at the same time it will be based on best evidence and people's wishes and needs. We are convinced that the effort and expertise that we put in this project will lead to a high quality result. Our end result will be as valuable as a golden hairlock of Goldilocks. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, our fairy tale can become true. Let us do our work, and the product we will deliver improves people's lives. It will be a product that helps people to conquer their own dragons. A product for mental vitality, to keep performing at your highest level. So, let us continue to end this story with a happily ever after.
Thank you, Team Philips. Too small in mouth. It's fun to watch the metaphor of fairy tales because I'm now watching all fairy tales on Netflix with my daughter of 14 years, and it's fun to see them again. And one other question is that I'm still curious what your product is about, but I will leave the questions up to the jury. So, is there a question, members of the jury?
My compliment, first of all, I liked your presentation very, very much. I think this will be the one that I will easily remember from this evening. Very good storyline and also very good selection of pictures which support your story, and also very good interaction which featured your clients also in this story. I want to ask you the same question actually I asked you during the working session. What can you use one sentence, just one sentence, to describe the ultimate goal of your project?
Sure. Yeah, I think that the ultimate goal of our project is to come up with a concrete product that can improve people's health and then especially mental health. So we really want to give people the opportunity to improve their performance. That's the main goal.
Are you going to deliver this product in the end?
We will probably deliver a prototype of a product. Yeah.
Thanks.
Is there another question? I was curious, where on the journey towards this product are you now? So what, let's say next week, what will you be doing?
So currently we know what the target group is, so we did a lot of research on that, and now we this week we will start with a survey specifically based on this target group, and then in-depth interviews will follow. And by the end of this month, we want to have all the research done on the whole target group, and then use that in the hackathon, which is basically going there and to Philips, sit there and go from all the ideas and all the research that has been done to a concrete product or prototype. And then after a full day, go back to our target group, ask them for feedback, improvements, and then do a whole other day. So yeah, where we're currently standing is still doing the research on the final target group, and that's the process.
Yeah.
And maybe one more thing about the product, so just to make it more clear, we are sure now that it will be an app, and since we're not software engineers, we will, well, there is an app where you can create an app in, so that is, and that is how we're going to create the prototype.
Thank you for the questions, and thank you, Team Philips. Then I would love to welcome the Team Green Industry to the front.
Hello. Perfect.
presentation you've been waiting for all day, and so did we. After this busy day, night and darkness are slowly approaching. Yet, we're still on top gear. Thanks to electricity, our daily activities prolonged until late hours. Seems normal, doesn't it? But it isn't. One day, Mr. Kaiser recognized the electricity problem in Pakistan and decided to plant a green industry. Coupling solar panels to batteries not only enabled households to generate, but also store energy. People could either fully live from energy or use the generated energy when electricity supply shut down. Because all good things are treated, two other green industries are to be planted. But where shall the trees grow roots? Next to Ruth, also Jacob, Myrte, and I have the objective of finding the perfect spot on Earth. And that's where our story begins. Being from the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, and the Czech Republic, we don't only check many republics, but also complement each other into one big package like the one we see. We're working hard to support Mr. Kaiser, and being our client, he's actually here today. Yes, or he was here. As a team, we don't only like to source insights from the internet, but also like to keep our faces inside. We therefore meet every week. Our coach Catalina is like the sun. She provides our batteries with food, turns on the light to keep us going, and even shares her offices with us.
And as our client is based in Cologne, we have bi-weekly Skype meetings in which we discuss our questions, challenges, and findings. Next month, we're planning to visit their office in Cologne, but this afternoon they were here. Unfortunately, they were not able to make it this evening, but we were able to present our findings and talk over our plans for the upcoming weeks. Because during the research, our methodology developed a lot. In order to do market research, we realized we needed a baseline, because numbers have limited meaning without a context. Therefore, we looked at what factors in Pakistan make an industry as successful as it is today. From those factors, we derived 5 core criteria. Energy deficit, so there's power outage, economic development, solar radiation, national solar production, and legal environment for an investment. With these 5 criteria, we felt confident to assess hundreds of countries. However, it proved very challenging to do this for over 100 countries with 5 in-depth criteria. Although we were happy with the content, we realized we needed to change our strategy towards more accessible criteria that are also easier to compare. Therefore, we came up with 3 new criteria. The first one is solar radiation. So we look at the amount of solar and the amount of hours that are in a country. Political stability, so there is no war and people feel safe most of the time. And affordability, so people actually have the money to buy a solar system.
Once we finally identified which countries we need to analyze, we had to devise another strategy to do so. It also required some time and hard thinking, but thanks to our previous work, we knew on what we should focus. Those were blackouts, electricity deficits in areas lacking a stable source of energy. But those were not the only things we had to consider at that stage. There were also other specifics that merited our attention because they could have proved to be problematic later on. For example, there are countries with a large domestic production. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to import solar equipment into them. By applying our previously chosen strategy, we managed to narrow down our list to 8 countries, which all seemed promising and worth looking into, but we probably still wouldn't be able to deliver an adequate report on all of them. After a discussion with our client, we removed half of them, and now 4 remain. Those 4 countries are South Africa, Kenya, the Philippines, and Vietnam. All of them fulfill our criteria, but also add something more. South Africa and Kenya are gateways to their regions. The Philippines islands are almost impossible to interconnect, and Vietnam does not have an electricity grid to fulfill its demand. Now that we have finally chosen the countries to investigate, we can proceed with our in-depth research. In order to achieve so, we came up with a scorecard that not only allows us to collect data, but also to evaluate them.
So to work with the scorecard, we decided to merge our individual expertise and create comprehensive knowledge. This is important because all the criteria are interlinked. Looking, for example, at the electricity grid only from a technical perspective without considering domestic distribution does not take you very far. But how does one create comprehensive knowledge? Well, we are all proud Master's University students, so we decided to come up with our own problem-based learning sessions. That means we sit together as a group and score the countries together. The first PBL session was last week on Kenya, and let me tell you, our approach looks quite promising. However, apart from the PBL sessions, we realized that we have to crawl up behind our desk and reach out to the outside world. Unfortunately, we're limited in time and resources, so traveling to the 4 countries is out of scope. Therefore, we will have to rely on the expertise of embassies, chambers of commerce, and other local experts to explore the remaining little details of marketing research. Our expectations for the upcoming weeks are high. By the end of May, we want to be done with the scoring of the countries, so we can work on our final recommendation on where to expand to. But, yeah, having learned from the past weeks, we also prepare ourselves for some more twists and turns in the road that will actually lead us there. All in all, we conclude that this premium experience really took us into some unexplored fields of personal and working experiences. It is very demanding, but we're going strong. We have developed both individually and as a group, and we are very motivated to finalize this project. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great night, and let's see if we can switch off the light.
Let's continue with the hour.
Yeah.
Members of the jury, do you have a question for this team?
I could start. I have asked the question about the advantage of using Pecha Kucha format to present the idea, the information. And could you elaborate a little bit more on what do you face when you prepare this presentation, the disadvantage of using Pecha Kucha format?
The disadvantage?
Yes.
Disadvantage of using
I think
both the advantage and the disadvantage.
I want to know the disadvantage.
You want to know the disadvantage.
So I think that the disadvantage is in the fact that we've done a lot of research, we collected a lot of data that we are not able to convey by using Pecha Kucha presentation. It basically limits us a lot in what we can express and deliver to other people.
Okay, so my next question, if there is no time limitation, no Pecha Kucha format, can you give me one more thing which you want to show us about your project? Because you said that you have a lot of research done and a lot of information. Give us one more.
Yeah, I think if we would have had the choice, then it would be good to explain a bit more about the case of Kenya that we worked on in the last few weeks. And so you really have an example about how all that information is connected and how it really depends on your perspective about how you want to formulate your recommendations for the client. That would have been valuable as well. More questions?
To what extent are you connected as a team? Do you fulfill the criteria that you
Well, we only have 20 seconds per slide, so this has to be really to the point.
So this is how the Pecha Kucha really also reflects our internal teamwork, and we're also rotating with the communication external to the client. So it's not like everyone is really individual. We have our autonomy, but then also through the PBL we mix everything together, and the same goes for the team management with the cooperation with the client.
Okay. Thank you, Team Green Industry. Welcome the Porta College team.
Was it
upon a time, in a land far, far away, there were 4 young ladies willing to find new challenges. One day, fate brought them together. A wise man, full of ideas, showed them the gates to the magic world of education and opportunities. And their shared dream became the key to their world. That's how the journey began. The wise man gathered the girls together. He had noticed that the pupils from the high school kingdom studied in the university kingdom library, and that was a very risky undertaking. He wanted to save them by creating a bridge to bring both kingdoms closer together. The young ladies, the wise man, and his 2 experienced counselors discussed several options on how to build the bridge. This involved a lot of brainstorming and intense discussions. All this led to the idea of joining the 2 kingdoms together by creating an interactive and collaborative learning zone. However, the wise man did not choose the 4 ladies by accident. He was in the board of one of the great schools of the high school kingdom, Porta Musana. Porta Musana is a Dutch secondary school which offers bilingual and Dutch-only educational programs. However, there were still some questions, some unresolved questions, such as, what are the students and pupils looking for in a learning zone, and how to possibly make them work together? Another question is, what are the most crucial aspects of such collaboration between them? And the third question that was left open, how to match the ladies' vision with reality.
So the 4 ladies, the wise man and the counsellors kicked off the creative process of the feast. Together they built the foundations of the project, and the ladies directly visualized the layout of this learning zone with gardens, cafeteria and creative spaces. It was a ready-to-implement business plan. But one meeting changed the focus of everything. The councillors advised us to broaden our horizons. They suggested to be more creative at the beginning and to not limit ourselves to the first idea that we had. There were so many different paths we could follow. This was such a wake-up call for the ladies. Their focus should be changed. This resulted in new brainstorming, new discussions and new meetings. The establishment of new girls and new challenges were made by the ladies. They realised that the most important thing was to focus on the stakeholders and also on the needs of the kingdoms involved. We also had to see the bridge between the high school students and the university students, and how could this be possible. So some process were needed to do this. Brainstorming was done, team meetings, visiting the kingdom of the high school, meeting these pupils, and the creation of questionnaires, and also contacting the counsellors. But this is still a work in progress. As in every fairy tale, there's always pitfalls and traps on the way to happy endings, such as the wise man's vagueness of the objectives, or the lady's hyper-motivation in the first idea. Luckily, when they shift ideas, but the motivation didn't fade. They kept on working, and the effort led to some new findings.
The results gathered in the high school kingdom was eye-opening, even shocking. It turned out that ladies' expectations didn't match the reality. The students in high school kingdom just couldn't realize the advantage of bridging two kingdoms. They actually thought the opportunity just to have more freedom in the new learning space. Getting such mixed results resulted in ladies' realization of reaching out more people, getting more elaborative needs analysis. Open questionnaires were created and were distributed online in order to get more answers both from inhabitants of high school kingdom and university kingdom. But let's get back to the ladies. They came from different worlds, and especially this diversity of multicultural and multidisciplinary backgrounds made them such a great team. They were valuing the open and honest communication, but were also open to the criticism. The great communication was definitely their strong side. It was carried through online, carrier pigeons, and also face-to-face communication. The high spirit was held also by updating each other, and also by following the democratically self-instated guideline. Even though the communication between the ladies was perfect, let's say,
The carrier pigeons sometimes got lost, and the wise men and the ladies couldn't get in touch. At the same time, it was very difficult to find a time slot in their busy schedules. And although the wise men provided some assistance, they needed some more.
So, having had some experiences, we finalized to set new goals and encounter more challenges enthusiastically. No miscommunications or any pitfalls can stand in our way. The second part of the process is what really matters, and we're finally ready to bridge the gap. New and exciting steps to be taken will, for example, be rethinking the learning zone as a place, finding ways to improve it by interviewing stakeholders, interviewing students, and actually fitting the learning zone to their specific needs. Also, repeatedly asking the question, why could this interaction be useful, and trying to really communicate that. Expectations for the second half of the projects are high. Our dream isn't over yet, it's only getting bigger. The ladies expect to create a learning kingdom that will be revolutionary. We're trying to find more realistic and tangible goals to really implement them and obtain as much results and points to create and find the perfect learning zone or spot as possible. Obviously, even though we're not exactly sure what this learning space is going to look like, there are some morals and some values that this learning space has, or is a place to be. There's a place for challenges, it's a place for opportunities, it's a place to grow academically and personally. It's a place for multicultural anything. So indeed, there have been many obstacles on the way to establishing our dream, but the ladies, we will remain optimistic, and we will continue to believe in our dream. We believe that the two mighty kingdoms will finally merge together in the castle in the clouds, where high school kingdom and university kingdom will live happily ever after will be created.
Thank you.
Well, since there will be a whole new building here on Tapijn in a few years, perhaps you can then dream on and see what you can accomplish in that direction. Members of the jury, do you have questions?
Well, thank you, ladies, for this very insightful and fascinating presentation. I see a theme occurring here, so if we have to summarize the evening, I would say fairy tales is definitely a good time. I'm just curious, because you are thinking about creating a learning zone. You want to make it a physical zone. Can it also be something online, digital?
Yes. Yeah. Well, since Pecha Kucha started, doesn't really let us expand that much. We also we thought already about the physical and the online zone, where there should be a web page where also new challenges would be created in it. We already designed some activities with good communities.
Okay, so you already have a vision, or sort of an overall goal of your learning zone?
Yeah, that's also partially a problem, because we're so focusing in creating actually something that we miss out the needs of people that would go there. Those would be a high school student and also university student, or probably some other parties, artists, or that's why we need this more elaborate need analysis, in order not to create something and then to wonder whether people would go there or not.
How far are you with your project? Can
Well,
you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, well, we started, let's say, really fast. We kind of created a business plan already in the starting weeks of the project. However, we got some mixed results after we did the needs analysis and the interviews with the different stakeholders. And after getting these mixed results, we had to rethink the project. So we're kind of going back to phase 1 again, trying to reshape the idea, maybe implement new ideas. Also, we need to discuss that with our client, because the initial idea is not going to happen anymore. So yeah, we really need to work on that, taking a new direction.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. Last but definitely not least, team focus.
boy did we think we were original by telling you a fairy tale. So, once again a fairy tale because, of course, repeating things makes it stick to you. Well, once upon a time, 4 different people were brought together for the premium program. They all came from different nationalities, different backgrounds, and different studies. We have the Italian and French work psychologist called Matilda and Fabio, a Polish health psychologist called Justina, and myself, a Dutch medical student. Well, these 4 unique individuals embarked on a quest to investigate team functioning for the client team focus. How ironic. A newly formed team with little experience and know-how on team functioning, starting a project on teamwork. I mean, that's like having a relationship therapist who's been divorced 3 times already. Well, our first experience began with a team experience at the Pashartel Castle. Deja vu, I know. Through team exercises and focused reflection, we learned about experiential learning, and that's actually the basis of team focus. So, after this first get-together, the group sat down and brainstormed, and we put together all our ideas for the coming project, with the ultimate goal of creating a team scan. This team scan should assess team functioning both before and after the experiential learning exercises of team focus, and we started to study with the literature research. Deja vu again. But very important in this slide is that the team can only consist of so many people to form a really cohesive team. Anything over 12 will be too many to do effective teamwork. So, now we know how many people can be in a team, we can go on about team functioning. And there are 7 functions that are really important in this. The first thing is communication. Communication is important because it can avoid conflict, and also being able to express your ideas will aid team creativity. And as you all know, the deadly effects of Romeo and Juliet's miscommunication. Communication can be a real lifesaver. Then here you see the second factor, which is conflict. Conflict sounds really dangerous, but it's a natural phenomenon occurring in every team. Actually, butting heads often helps a team to get to know each other's strengths and weaknesses better, which helps them progress to a more effective stage of functioning. Then there are common goals and values. A common cause of conflict can be that the group has different goals and values. And when this discussion comes up, it is important that the individual goals are being acknowledged, while there is a search to reach a common goal within a team. Then the team will get the boat going again. Well, let's talk a little bit about team roles. As you may all have experienced, it is very important that the different team roles are well represented within a team. Let's think of a keeper who keeps everybody's feelings involved, and an executor who makes sure work gets done. In the end, everyone should fit well together. Then a close look at leadership. Leadership is often mistaken for being higher in rank, but actually leadership is more about keeping an overview and making sure that the group keeps progressing. Furthermore, a leader should stand hand in hand with his team members and not above them. Then we have decision making. Decision making is something we do every day. For example, this morning it already took me 20 minutes to get to know what clothes to wear, and just imagine all my team members commenting on this and having to agree on one outfit. That's always the same thing with teamwork. It's really time consuming and never easy. Then the 7th and final factor. That's about having an open and trusting atmosphere within a group. Trust is essential because it forms the basis for open and honest communication. And having a trusting atmosphere makes people feel at ease, which in turn makes them function better. So, now you know all about the 7 factors influencing team functioning. But then our team hit the wall. We knew all the theory, but how are we going to bring this into practice? How are we going to develop a well-functioning team scan with this information? So, it was time to get back to our client. In consultation with our client, we decided what the most important things were to focus on in a team scan. This will be flexible factors like communication within a team, and not the fixed factors like team composition. Furthermore, we want to focus on the happiness of the individuals within the group, rather than their opinion of the functioning of the group as a whole. How are we going to measure this?
Actually, we wanted to make a really cool interactive video game or a role play, but instead we went with the good old-fashioned questionnaire, which I know sounds a little boring, but it's way more feasible to develop within the time and resources given to us, and you can measure a lot of things at once. So, there we have it, our glass slipper. We were at the end of our quest with the team focus team. We know all about what is needed for good team functioning, we know exactly what the team scan should look like, so job well done, right? Not just yet. This is actually only the beginning of the next phase. We still have to develop the entire team scan. And as time is running short already, we will have to set clear deadlines. For example, we have to make questions, test it on pilot groups, translate it, etc., etc. So, we really still have a very long road ahead of us. But it's the road we are very much looking forward to. As you just already told us, every team has experienced some conflicts, some obstacles, and we really did as well. But you know what they say. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And in our case, it really did. We already grew a lot as a team, and we are confident that we will deliver the team scan to our client in the end. Perhaps with some suggestions for next premium teams to further develop it. And then, because you haven't heard it already this night, our dream team for Team Focus will live happily ever after.
Thank you, Team Focus, and also for your sharp connection to the previous presentation. So it definitely wasn't the last. Members of the jury, your final questions.
Can you explain a little bit more about this experiential learning, maybe, that you mentioned in the beginning? How did you experience that yourself?
Yes, experiential learning is actually a form of learning by doing, really, and it's mostly about team exercises. So, for example, we got the challenge of, we got a little pipe and a ping pong ball, and there was this track of, I think, 50 meters, and we had to make sure that with those loose pipes we got the ball without falling from one end to the other. And then in the end, after we failed a couple of 100 times, but we got there in the end, we had to reflect on how the process was going. Did we cooperate? Did we communicate? Etc., etc. So it's a really fast and simple way of reflecting on team functioning.
Okay. Is there another question?
Yeah, I'm actually curious about your client. Focus. So what kind of organization is that?
That's the organization that organizes the experiential learning. It's located at the Vaasachtelkastel in Maastricht North, which is a really beautiful surrounding. And there they train teams that need information on team functioning. They train them with the experiential learning. So they have an afternoon of different exercises and reflection on that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Team Focus, for your presentation. You're done. I will now close up the screen because we are done. We will stay in the room. The members of the jury will take a few minutes of time, and then they will award the best Pecha Kucha for this evening. And after that, I am kindly asking you to take out all your catering. You can take a snack over there probably, and then we are done for tonight. Thank you. Inga, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. Oh, we have a prize. Guys, I have the award over here. And the winner is, I need to make a whole story out of it to keep it a little bit exciting, right? That's what to do with the Oscars as well. Let me say, for me, it was the first time on the jury and I had a lot of fun. So thank you all very much for giving me this really nice evening. I really enjoyed all the fairy tales. I mean, it's the most sort of different perspectives on fairy tales that I got in a really, really long time. So thank you very much for that. And I think you all are winners, because when I was watching you, I thought, wow, this is actually something. I mean, I never did a Pecha Kucha presentation myself, for instance, and I was really impressed by your preparation. I mean, you all look very well prepared. You all
very clearly worked together on a presentation, which I really appreciated, and I think we all did. I speak on behalf of the entire jury here. But then we decided, well, we had to choose, because I only have one award, so we had to choose one winner. And for us, that was the first team. So the Museum Pass team. What we really liked. So please, Museum team, come here. Informative presentation. You were the first in the evening, so you really had to sort of set the tone, and you did that very well, we thought. You had a nice attention grabber with your Queen song. I'm glad we made the audio. You managed to get the Queen's word, yeah. You had a nice storyline. You were very well on timing, and your visuals supported your story very well. You had a good connection also to the audience. So all in all, good job. Bob?
Thank you, yeah. One more final deed and then I will close the evening. So, members of the jury, of course, we want to say thank you also for being here and being part of our jury, and I do hope you enjoyed the evening as we explained already. So, thank you so much also. Have a safe trip home, enjoy the remainder of Premium, and we will see each other all at the closing on the 9th of June. Until then, bye bye!